Welcome to the Super Life Show.
I know, I'm excited. I'm excited. My wife and I watched the first season like a long time ago, and I had no idea that was you. Actually, when Nick set this up, I didn't have any idea until I started doing my little deep dive, and I was like, "Oh my God!" I was like, "That's his show."
Your life is wildly interesting. Um, so you were a full on trauma surgeon, correct? That was how it all.
Yeah, I mean, I did general surgery first. I really didn't know where I was going to end up. And I mean, medicine wasn't even on the radar for me. I was not a great student there, and there's a whole story behind how I got to where I am. Like, I am not supposed to be
Yeah,
sitting
like
here. Like,
special ed and shit, right?
yeah, like I was like not really a good student, not supposedly a smart kid. And when I look back now, I realize it had nothing to do with intelligence. It was just being a young, vibrant, energetic kid who just didn't give a shit about sitting in a classroom.
Right.
But yeah, so when I decided to go to medical school and I got in, I volunteered in an OR in Atlanta, which is where I grew up, and just cleaning ORs. I was an orderly, so I was just mopping floors and wiping down tables and just trying to
Wow.
to be kind of involved in medicine as much as I could. And that's where I fell in love with surgery. So I knew that I wanted to be a surgeon at that point. And this was before I'd even matriculated to med school. I hadn't even gotten in yet. Um, and so then I was like, I just don't really know what I want to do in surgery. And as I went through med school, it was like, yeah, each specialty I rotated my third year was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And then I got to surgery and I was like, yeah, I'm still doing that. So I knew I wanted to do surgery or be involved in that. And general surgery was just kind of the next natural step for me. I didn't really have a desire for plastics or orthopedics or anything in specific. So I ended up doing general surgery in Chicago, which is where I went to med school, and I was at Mount Sinai in Chicago, which is literally knife and gun club. So it was just insane trauma, day and night, gunshot stabbings, car accidents, you name it. I've seen it. I've been around it. It was as close to being in field battle, I think, as you could probably imagine, which I'm sure that's much worse. But so that's how I started out. And so I was involved in a lot of the reconstructive aspect of those patients throughout because plastics would come in and kind of do stuff in the inner city hospital. And I had some buddies who were at Northwestern in the plastics program, and they're like, you should think about plastic surgery for all of these different reasons. And so as I kind of moved through trauma, I realized like, I don't know that I see myself being a trauma surgeon or even a general surgeon doing gallbladders and bowel obstructions and hernias for the rest of my life. And I really fell into the reconstructive aspect of plastics, drew me in big time because it was really cool stuff. So I went to the lab for a year at Northwestern in a plastic surgery lab, and while I was in there, I just decided I think this is the thing for me, and went for it. So I finished general surgery. I did 5 6 years of training. I did 5 years of 5 years of general surgery with a year of research in the middle. Graduated and then did a plastic surgery residency after that.
So then moving into that, but you've always had this, well, maybe, when did your aperture open up in terms of, hey, wellness, exercise, diet, all of these mental health, all of these other aspects of what you now are kind of circling the wagons on with your practice.
Yep.
When did that kind of lens start to open up around all of these other things?
It was really after I graduated from plastic surgery, I was obese. I was overweight, out of shape. My wife was pregnant with our twins. And before that, I'd always been athletic. I played sports growing up. I was a big baseball player. I'd always been an exercise person, but just throughout training, you kind of lose it, man. Like you're working 120 hours a week and there were no restrictions. It was insane. Like if you weren't working, you were sleeping. So when I got out, I was like, okay, I'm obese. Like I gotta fix this. I was 200 pounds. I'm 5'7", and I just didn't feel good in my body. And I'd run 5 marathons that way. Like I ran Chicago 5 times while I was in residency, and I wasn't quite as heavy as at the time I got out. I was probably more like 190 or 185, 190, which is still running pretty heavy. So I got out and I just decided like this is it. Like I'm taking control of my life. I'm not living this way anymore. I want to run around with my kids. I want to be a picture of health for them, for my wife. I want to be around. I don't want to have a heart attack. And so that sort of is where my wellness journey started. It was just kind of realizing I'm about to be a big boy, and I was 39 at the time, but I'm like, I'm about to be a big boy. Like, I'm starting my practice, I have a family, and I have people who are depending on me being here and being okay. Um, and so then we can get into how this is parlayed into my MB wellness concept that I have in my practice. But I've always been, even throughout my plastic surgery training, I did a lot of breast cancer stuff for a long time. And cosmetics, I think, is just the natural thing that kind of happens to us over time. But I've always, always, always preached wellness to my patients. And I turn down patients all the time who are not ready for surgery physically, because I want them to get the best result possible. And it's sort of the help me help you scenario. And so the way that that all came to fruition was I got sick of trying to educate patients on why it was important for them to lose weight and get healthy before they had a procedure. And so and I would turn them away and I'd say, hey, like, go lose 15 to 20 pounds, and here's why you need to do it. And then please come back. And if the time is right, like, we'll do your procedure so that you can get the best result and maintain that result throughout your postoperative experience and not just be one of those rebounders who's going to regain your weight and why did you have surgery? So I started to think, like, why am I turning these people loose to go potentially find someone to help them lose weight when I know it's not going to happen? They're just going to go find the next surgeon down the road who's going to tell them yes. So I started to get into this whole, like, okay, well, mental health is important, right? Like, if you don't feel good about yourself and there's something from your past and that's the reason why you're yo-yoing and continuing to lose and gain weight because you haven't dealt with sexual abuse or an abusive relationship or something that's happened in your past that's keeping you from losing the weight, we need to address that first, even before the weight loss. So that's where I started to think, like, man, we should provide mental health for these patients. Like, do they need someone to talk to? And then also at the same time, let's provide them with nutrition consulting and let's give them the full picture of why this is important. And so then if they lose all their weight and they don't need a tummy tuck, awesome. You've avoided an operation. And that's fine by me because there's plenty of people who are going to have surgery and need surgery. I don't have to cut on everyone who walks through the door. I want to do the best thing for you, the person sitting in front of me. And if that means you don't ever have surgery, but you get your shit together and you lose weight and you're mentally strong, good for you. Go conquer the world. And that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's always great to hear the holistic approach to health when especially, in this field where everyone, reductionism runs wild in terms of I just want to do this and I'll feel better and I want to take this pill and I'll feel better and if I get this in this instance, get this surgery and it's going to change everything and it's always punting it out here, right? It's all out here and, it's that inevitable road that all of a sudden you do all of the things and you're still faced with yourself. So what are your strategies to help people in the mental health? Because God knows that is rising like, unfortunately, a fire.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
mean, I just try to provide someone like there's a woman who my boys are on the spectrum and she used to be an ABA therapist and she was kind of getting into also adults mental health stuff. And we came across her and I said, hey, listen, I have this concept. Would you be willing to be available if I ever have patients that sound like they need someone or want to talk to someone to talk to my patients? And she was like, absolutely. So as I would talk to patients, I can kind of get a sense from people if they're struggling mentally or not. And probably more so than many doctors, I probe it a little bit. Like, I'm looking for it because I realize that there are so many other things in life that relate to why the person is sitting in front of me. It may not just be for surgery. So if I get a sense that a patient really is needing to talk to someone, I just try to put it in front of them. I go, hey, listen, think nothing of this. I'm not telling you that you have a problem. But if you need help and you're struggling with this mental problem with food, a food addiction that you have, or whatever it is that's going on, I have someone in my office who can talk to you. Would you be willing to spend 30 minutes with her, sitting down and having a chat? And you would not believe how many people say yes. And so that's how it started. I mean, and it's still not anywhere close to what I want it to be in my practice, but that's kind of how it started.
Yeah, it's like, we all can live in these silos, right? And it can be, I don't have my shit together, so it's hard to talk about it because I want to get that shit together, and I got all these things to do, and then it's you silo your own problems, and then if you don't have friends or community that is open to that kind of thing, it just becomes further and deeper into these cycles. And so, when given permission, almost it's I think that alone is so necessary across the board in society. As men, we have our own, blockages around that, and as women, you've got children and family and a million things to do, potentially harder at work than any of us. So then, okay, well, okay, great, but I'm fifth in the quadrant of taking care of anybody. Like everyone else is there, but I'm last, or whatever. So just even then in that space of giving people permission to, take care of myself, it's huge, man. And how to scale that is an interesting question to me. Like
Yeah.
I think of how to hyper individualize stuff all the time. Like, how do you hyper individualize, but also at scale, so we can go beyond, in your instance, like, but it's so powerful for interaction. We talk about interaction and community; it's so important. But at the same time, how do we help more people have access to things that maybe they wouldn't have access to?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't quite figured it out, and I think I hope eventually we do. And this is where when I talked about, eventually stepping aside from my clinical practice, which I still love and I still love to operate, but I still feel like there's something that I haven't done yet that is left to do on this planet. And it has something to do with the health and wellness space because that's just so important to me. And so I really do want to figure it out how to scale that. I have had these ideas of trying to create something for other practices around the country where we could even tell them like, hey, offer these services. You can send them to us. Like we can do virtuals for patients. We can do mental health virtually, but let's start thinking about it. Let's get this involved in the game where we're not just milling patients through our practices just to make money. And this is specifically with cosmetic surgery. Like I want surgeons to be thinking more from the holistic perspective because there's nothing worse than a patient that has a surgery and then gains 50 pounds a year later for something they just probably could have dealt with mentally. And then it was like a wasted operation. And what's the point?
Yeah, and potentially trauma on top of trauma. Because if trauma isn't, I mean, I've never even thought about this, but can you imagine if you're choosing out of trauma and you're unaware of it consciously, and then you're doing something to counteract the trauma, but not at the root cause of it, is it worse, better, the same? I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, how do we, we're so, I mean, the oxymoron is we have social media and we have less and less connection.
Yep.
Like it is a Twilight Zone episode playing out real time where everything seems like it's the world of opposites. And this keeps me up at night. These kind of things, like like I'm from a small town, in Minnesota, and I think of, I filter my choices based on where I'm from. How will they hear this?
Hmm.
What do they need? Because that's like the snippet of middle America that don't have that can't come into your office, that can't afford X, Y, and Z, that have a certain layer of this is all I got. This is my doctor. This is the HMO plan. This
Hmm.
is my insurance will cover, and they have barely any choice in that whole scenario. Dude, that is just something that is just wickedly wicked,
Yeah,
like from my perspective.
it
Like,
is. Healthcare's in a crazy place right now. That's a whole nother topic, but healthcare is in a very precarious position right now. A lot of stuff's about to go down, I feel like. But I mean, yeah, it's sad. It kills me to see patients not have choices. You know, that there's people that should have choices. And it's just the system makes it impossible, right? And doctors are run down because they are held to a standard of milling people through as fast as they can in order to get paid, which means that the whole healthcare system drops and you're not providing the proper care because all you're trying to do is hit numbers and metrics. And it's really a mess right now. And I don't deal with it as much as they do, because I don't do as much insurance work anymore. But when I was doing a ton of breast cancer stuff, I saw it all the time, all the time.
Yeah, because then you're right down the pipe of the system, and oof.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a lot.
yeah, it's tricky. And so, speaking of holistic care, I hear you had a not so great moment at your grill, uh,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
you got some severe burns, but you
Yeah.
approached it a little differently than the average
Yeah,
person.
I did. This was nuts. So this summer in August, we have a little island outside with a grill embedded in it, and there's a propane tank underneath. And it was a flat top grill. We just gotten a new flat top grill, lit it, kind of walked away to let it preheat. Middle of the summer here, it's 120 degrees, so the grill felt hot to me when I walked back over. My wife was like, "Something smells funny," and I was like, "Yeah, it does. I think it's the gas." So I turned it off, thinking that the gas would just sort of dissipate that was collecting between the flat top and the burner because you can't see the burner. Well, little did I know that the entire island was just filling with propane because propane is a heavy gas. It goes down. So it filled the island. And so I've come to learn that the islands are supposed to be vented and ours was not. There's cinder blocks that are stuccoed. So it's basically a bomb.
Oh,
So I walk back over to relight the grill, and the second I ignite it, it explodes into my legs. So the tank was right below where my legs were, and the metal doors flew open, huge fireball, kind of burned my arm a little bit, not bad, but essentially from my knees below were almost circumferential burns on both legs. Like just instantaneously, I looked down and saw skin hanging off my legs. So with my
oh,
burn trauma history, I went and got in the swimming pool really quickly just to cool my legs off. But when I got out, I was like, "Holy crap! Like this is real. Like I just became a burn victim." So, long story short, they ended up being second degree burns, and we weren't sure if I was going to have skin grafts if they were going to convert to third degree burns or not. But I got admitted to the hospital about 3 or 4 days after. I went into the burn unit here, which is one of the top in the country. Our Maricopa County Burn Center is insanely amazing. And they clean me up, they dress them. She's like, "I want to see you back in 3 days." I come back in 3 days. She's like, "I want to keep you, take you to surgery. We got to make sure that some of this is bleeding so that, or not, we're going to have to start cutting stuff away and skin grafting you." So at that moment, so I went in for that procedure and she was like, "Well, not great bleeding, but it's bleeding. So let's just continue your dressing changes. We put these special amniotic grafts on your legs, and I want to see you back next week." So that was the moment where I went into, okay, it's time for hyperbaric exosomes, which are like stem cells, vitamin drips, you name it. I started like attacking everything that I could think of holistically that would help me heal and repair and get better without, trying to avoid having a skin graft because I knew what that meant for me too. So I did that. I did hyperbaric for about 10 days straight. Was kind of sprinkling exosomes on them because I know where to get that stuff. And, I understand I'm privileged to know where that is and be able to get that. But I started doing everything I could. And when I went back to see her, I saw her a week later and she was like, "Holy shit, you're like healed." I'm like, "I know. I've been healed for 3 days already."
wow.
And so she was just blown away, and obviously happy and blown away that I probably wasn't going to need skin grafts. So when I peel back all of this, part of it too, Darren, is I contribute a lot of this to my health status going into this burn.
Mm.
So I try to always tell patients, and I sort of preach this on social media a little bit about I want to stop focusing on weight loss through exercise. That should not be your focus. Your focus shouldn't be that we're trying to lose weight. The focus should be we're trying to resistance train and put on muscle mass, which is hugely important. Get our nutrition status so that we don't have diabetes and all these vascular diseases that are just going to kill us. Focus on getting your body to a place like what happened to me so that when the disaster does happen, you are in the best shape possible to tolerate and withstand the trauma that happens to you. And there is no question that my ability to heal for those burns was not just the exosomes and the vitamin IV drips and the hyperbaric. It's because I have been doing CrossFit for 12 years. I have packed on enough muscle that in a time when I had zero appetite, and with burns, you need like 3x the protein intake because you lose protein from your skin because you have no epidermis, so you're just leaching protein. So I basically chewed up all of the muscle in my body for protein to help me heal because you just don't have the appetite to eat when you're hurt like that. And I was taking in as much as I could and it wasn't enough. But I 100% contribute the fact that I was in such amazing shape going into that burn for getting me through it. I was ready for the trauma.
So you built resilience, and I think
Totally.
that's such a huge point. It also goes into the mental health side of things. Is just the things you're doing to integrate into your life, whether it's drink some more water, get rid of plastic water bottles, exercise, breathing, whatever it is. I'm a firm believer in what you said too, in the sense that you're building resiliency because life will throw you. Hopefully, not a bomb, taking the skin off your legs, but things do happen, and so those little moments are the resiliency that's being built, and also mentally, right? So that mental side of things, because you could handle your catabolic state that you kind of had to be in order for your body to kind of use those resources in other ways. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna I'm gonna get rid of some. We're gonna have a changeover of some amino acids here, and some RNA signaling that's gonna start to repair. But also, like these therapies are, we talk about it's almost like, the AMA and the medical system in a certain way is archaic when it
Oh,
comes
yeah.
to regenerative medicine. And what's a better way to say your legs went into regenerative state, right? To truly create the foundation and the terrain for them to go, I know how to do this when given the right circumstances. And that's a perfect example of just that, the body's ability to heal. But it's like, if you're going to cut and poison me over and over again to try to get to some sort of result, uh, there's just it just slams together in this way of like, okay, yeah, our medical system's fucking amazing, and it sucks at the
Totally.
same time.
We have so much at our disposal. I mean, I didn't throw in there. I used peptides too, so I was doing TB 500 and
Right,
SP 157. I mean, I
right,
I was
right,
injecting that stuff, right? And I mean, I would love to see the industry move towards it's okay if big pharma doesn't have a big stake in this game. These
right.
are good for people. Let's let people use them because they're a huge deal. But you're absolutely right. Resilience was the word that was escaping me, and that's what I've sort of said on social media. Like when you do hard things such as CrossFit or climbing a mountain or having some big VO2 max workout days once a week or something like that, you're literally building the resilience in your body to handle traumatic situations. And
Right.
that's exactly what I felt. And I mean, mentally, I was in a bad place for about probably 5 days. Like I was for sure clinically depressed for 4 or 5 days. I mean, I was angry. I was mad. I was going through all of those emotions. I was sad. And then Around day 4 or 5, I flipped the switch and I was like, I'm gonna be okay. Like it is time to heal. And I just went into fighting mode.
Right. Well, Doc, I think it's important to highlight that too, because, and I'm glad you kind of went back and said that, because it's easy for us to just tell the story and go, oh yeah, see, he has all this stuff at his disposal. He did all these things, but yet that's still the reckoning. You still That's the kind of a certain dark night of the soul. It's a certain grief. Like it's PTSD, it's trauma, it's grief.
Hmm.
Like these things are that's not wrong. That's absolutely necessary.
Hmm.
These things present themselves in our humanness to then kind of almost create this space where we can dig deeper, find ourselves, find the truth. I mean, look at any trauma, the LA freaking fires, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden, all community comes together. It's as within, so without, as above, so below. It's showing the same thing. Community went through a problem, and then you go through the grief, you go through the hell. I lost everything. I know exactly what that feels like in 2018 fire, featured on the fucking end of the docu series, right? So good for the show. Uh, but all of those things are necessary, and then it's like the warrior fight or the victim fight. Like, just, I mean, it's a different scenario, but for me, I recognized when I was going through layers of grief, I recognized there was a seduction of being a victim, in the sense that even society in certain pockets will almost want you to be a victim, or
Yeah.
oh my god, I'm so, and that's fine in a certain sense, but then it's like you described, all of a sudden you got to do something internally to go, it's now, I'm going to take this on,
Hmm.
because I got to take responsibility for where I'm at right now and then overcome it. And I can imagine you see that with people who have issues or chronic issues or whatever, and all of a sudden you're like, are you identifying to that? Is that identity become so powerful that you're actually don't know who you are on the other side? So it keeps this victim space in place. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, the victim mentality is unbelievable. And I mean, I took to social media and I showed all this. There was a day when I was literally crying on my Instagram stories and I was like, this sucks. I am miserable. I don't know what's going to happen to me. Am I going to need more surgery? Am I going to be out of work for another 3 or 4 weeks beyond what I thought I was? And I thought it was important for the reasons you pointed out, just as a doctor, to say, I am just like you. I had a shitty mental health week that I didn't know if I was going to be able to come out of. And to let people see that, and I was getting so many DMs of, thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for crying. Thank you for showing us that it's okay for a man to cry, to be down, to be helpless. And then to see you come back and see you fight and see the video the day when you were in the mirror being like, I'm not letting this take me down. It's fight time. I could barely walk. My legs felt like they were this big. It was every step was painful, but like I knew I had to get up and I forced myself to get out of bed and stand at the sink and brush my teeth and wash my face, no matter how painful it was to stand there. Just tell myself like, it's time to flip the switch and it's time to change and it's time to fight. This isn't forever. So it was important for me to show that I wasn't going to have that victim mentality forever. And I had it for a little while. But I didn't allow myself much time in that space because I knew that that would just drag me down and I would never heal. And I knew that a positive mindset was going to tell my body to start healing. Like, fix this and the rest is going to start to happen. And that's exactly what happened.
Well, it's beautiful because in the keys to that is the vulnerability, your willingness to be vulnerable and step outside of the silo, right? Because you could
Hmm.
easily be in a dark room all week and just fucking cry and scream and but it's like it takes another kind of strength to go, I am a mess and I'm gonna share it. And that's we don't get a lot of that in general in society, even less on social media. But the bridge that's created with vulnerability is so powerful.
Oh yeah. I that hormetic stressor made me a different person.
Mm.
I'm a different person today than I was after August 3rd this summer. There's no question. It's hard to explain to people. I mean, obviously there's a gratitude for life that if that tank had blown, which it did not, but if the tank had blown, I would probably be dead,
Oh,
or even worse, I probably would have lived and it would have been really, really bad. Like
oh,
horrifically burned and damaged, and I would have been one of those survivors. Um, but I'm that experience has changed me for sure.
well,
It's
yeah,
crazy.
I mean, that's the gratitude is so important because you're right. I mean, how one little thing could have literally exploded that and wiped out your leg, just like you stepped on a freaking landmine. Like
It
it,
would have been a bomb. I mean, the
yeah.
tank was in front of me. It would have sent me through the stucco wall into the kitchen behind me, I'm sure. It would have sent me through the freaking window. And I mean, just like I don't, it's interesting because Darren, I don't have any PTSD from the event. Like, I don't have nightmares. I don't have moments. I'm not that kind of a person that kind of dwells on that traumatic situation. For me, it was, I could have died, but I didn't. I'm still here. There's a reason I'm still here. So I'm just going to move on with my life with a healthy appreciation that every time I step on the jujitsu mat to train or get to go to the gym to work out or wake up and hug my kids and my wife, that it is a moment of gratitude that holy shit, I made it, and I'm really lucky for that. And it could have easily been my widowed wife and my kids with no father, you know?
Whoa, fuck,
It's
yeah,
just
it's
crazy
heavy.
to think about, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's that. I mean, we life is so fragile. It could literally be that one little adjustment of whatever didn't get into the fuselage of the
Yeah.
damn tank, and it's
Yeah.
like it could have, who knows, but and maybe you don't grill anymore. I don't know, but
I
maybe
got an
that.
electric grill. I got a pellet grill now. I got rid of it. It's pretty sweet, man. I've been searing and smoking these freaking briskets for like 17 hours. It's a whole new world for me because I grew up in Georgia. I'm a big griller and I love barbecue. And I lit the grill since it happened, but I just saw no reason for me to continue with the propane tank anymore
Yeah.
or gas. I was like, eh. So I did get rid of it because I will tell you the only thing I do play over every now and then is I hear the click from the igniter when I click and the boom sound. Like I hear that sometimes and I'm like, oh God. Oh, that and I can't imagine stepping up to a grill and doing that now every time I want to grill, which is always kind of being like, is it gonna blow?
I, I,
Even though
I
I
can't,
know it's not, you know?
I don't know how we even survive. I really don't. Like, there's so much. I just this morning trained with the ex SAS guy,
Hmm.
and he starts telling stories, and you're going, "Oh yeah, and then Africa, and Liberia, and this happened." And you're just going, and he's the nicest guy in the one sense, and you're going, How?
I know.
Like how? Like
Our
it's
military, man, those men and women, the stuff they see and the things they do, it's unbelievable.
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 So,
Crazy.
so I think one of the things that you and I share is everyday products that that have some hidden um, challenges in them, and I think you do a pretty good job on educating as well. I try to do my best too, but it's this hidden world and I'm sure everyone and anyone asks you about this product and that product and what about this serum and the 12 that come online every freaking day
I
that
know.
are new and are using advertising scamalama ding dong, so where do you sit with that, and what are some of your biggest education red flags around, call it cosmetics, beauty products, household products, whatever?
I am not a huge supplement taker. I do take some stuff. And I'm with you. I think that social media has become this place of no one knows what to do anymore. No one knows what to believe. No one knows what to take. Are you just trying to sell a product? Are you authentic about your product? Is it real? Does it work? Does it not work? People want the quick fix. You kind of mentioned that before. So I really have a lot of red flags around all of the TikTok stuff. And as much as I love social media, because I do, but all of the bad stuff that comes with it of the selling of products and scamming people is there's no magical product. I try to tell people there is no one product that's magic. The magic is in you taking care of yourself day in and day out, staying away from processed foods, working out on a routine basis, moving your body, whatever that looks like for you. And then, of course, like I love creatine. I think creatine is one of the most researched products. It works. I feel
Sure.
stronger when I'm using it. I love the
Yeah.
product. Um, Magnesium is an incredible electrolyte that I think everyone should take. Everyone should be hydrating and drinking like mad every single day. That is a huge thing for me. But when it comes to all the beauty stuff I see, like the promise of wrinkle reduction and even the machines, they're all BS. They're all BS. And what I tell patients all the time, they'll ask me about skin tightening machines all the time. And I'm like, listen, if there was any one machine that was the holy grail that was like amazing and it worked, we would all own it. Every freaking cosmetologist in the country and the world would own it. But there's not. The reason there are 15 different machines that you get pitched every day is because not one of them really works. And so I try to spend a lot of time telling patients that I'm sure that there are people that you'll see on social media that will get a result from a skin tightening machine or a product that's sold, but they probably were already in a really good place and they got that little kind of 5% boost from that device or whatever. But really, honestly, you're going to age. There's no way around it. Sure, there are things you can do to age gracefully, but there's no magic product. And I really try to steer people away as much as I can from the promise of a product like being the holy grail for them for anything. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that I would echo that majority of everything they're actually asking for and wanting, it resides in the exercise, sleep, eating really well, staying away from the ultra processed food, surrounding themselves in community, like the basics, and of course hydration has been a wild fascination of mine for a long time. And surround yourself with, try to find the most amazing whole foods in the world. That's that. Can you grow it? Can you do things like that at a certain point? And then, if you really want to know, get some tests, figure out what you individually are low in. And I would agree, obviously, there's some pillars that are pretty strong in terms of vitamin D3 and
Mm-hmm.
K2 and magnesium and some actual electrolytes that are assimilative to the body. These kinds of things. But yeah, it's the Wild West. And then the women in the beauty world is just unbelievable because it's unfortunately because marketing is its basis is to go after the insecurity of where you're at. And so the pitching of those products and the fragrances and the non-disclosures and the flow agents and like, oh my God.
I know.
The amount of damage that you're actually doing to the unseen forces of your xenoestrogen systems and endocrine disruption and potential cancers and like slathering on stuff because you feel like you have this insecurity over here. That's the shit that freaks me out, right? The
The
non-disclosure.
skincare industry, man, is
Yeah,
scary. It's
yeah,
scary.
yeah,
All the products and stuff that are out there that people push for wrinkle reduction. And I mean, look, there's certain things that probably help, like a retinoid we know helps, but holy cow, man, like there's just so much. I don't really, I'm one of the plastic surgeons actually who probably doesn't have a huge med spa because I've just never really bought into a lot of the machines. And I do think there's basics in skincare that are really important, like washing your face and hydrating and moisturizing and maybe, preventing some skin cancer using some type of a good mineral sunblock. But I don't really sell a bunch of services in my office because I have a hard time selling stuff to people that I think is crap. And I
yeah,
think that a lot of the skincare industry is preying on people and trying to tell them that if you just use these products, like you will be wrinkle free and look young forever. And it's just not true. It's not
yeah,
true. But I do think there are some good products, but I think the majority of them are probably not great.
yeah. And then it's just rinse and repeat of that same
Same
story.
concept,
Yeah, it's the same
you know?
story, and and it's the same kind of victim thing. And like I always see, like that's how I got in the supplement. Well, it's not the only reason, but I kept looking at supplements and seeing like why do they have this in there, and why is it not at any level that's going to do anything, and where is it coming from, and how was it grown, and why is this undisclosed? And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. And they're selling it. And this was like the naive kid, in the early 2000s that I was just like, why would you lie about a product? Why would you sell this shit? And that kind of naivete was just like, no, I got to go figure this out myself and go fly and do and innocently. And that's how the whole freaking botanical journey started because of this inherent lie and kind of creating this false narrative. And now it's just at a level, especially with sustainability and eco this and botanical that and natural this. It's just at a level that you just like do you know how many times I've had owners of companies on calls just trying to vet, going, okay, send me this, send me the like, and then I'm still digging and I'm still digging, and then all of a sudden I'm like going, what? They tried to get that passed, and then I'm like, give their money back. I'm not gonna like I turned down, having a podcast. You need to have a certain level of support around it to make it viable, to make you
Yep.
pay for your own team and stuff like that. I turn down 99% of the shit all the time because I'm spending so much time vetting, and then then you're finding out all of this stuff when they're saying one thing, and and it's just I don't know how ethically and morally so many people do that. It's just
I have turned
strange.
down so many brand deals.
I'm
I could
sure. I'm
probably be
sure.
making a lot more money than I do on social media because it's not a
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
lot.
yeah,
But I do because I just can't get past the pitch that people, even just the email, when I read the email, I'm like,
yeah,
no, I can already tell it's a no,
yeah,
and I just,
yeah.
I can't, I can't, and I don't know, man, maybe we just were cut from this ethical cloth in life that not many people are, and people just want to pad their bank account. But I have never been the kind of person that could ever feel good about myself and put my head on a pillow at nighttime if I was pushing something that I didn't believe in. So I
Yeah,
only ever push stuff that I believe in.
yeah, totally.
Um, so I'm curious to ask you a question about NAD because NAD is something I haven't really researched a lot, and it's such a hot topic right now. And obviously, I know what nicotinic adenine dinucleotide is, but how do you like? Tell me what you know. How do you feel about it? I know you're a fan of it.
Yeah,
It's a big topic right now.
it is a big topic. I had the pleasure of interviewing the inventor, and so he understanding that NR, taking NR, nicotinamide riboside, creates the pathway for the body then to produce more NAD.
Hmm.
So I really centered around and talked with True Niagen a lot, and they had 300 studies, most of the science. So they had the most data, and they were driving more research back into the product, and so that was the one of the most impressive things. However, there's more and more research coming out. There's more and more different delivery systems. I just got pitched yesterday about a direct NAD that it's a double-blind, placebo-controlled study where you take in NAD at a high level, and then you just do maintenance levels, and apparently it saturates your system in a matter of like weeks. So I don't know enough about it yet,
Hmm.
but it's exciting. I think there's enough evidence from this kind of groundbreaking swell of seeing how important obviously NAD is, and if there is any kind of biochemical thing that we know is like, you know, 30 years old, NAD's plummeting. So, I do nerd out and love kind of these novel compounds that and understandings of certain physiology that come up. And I also am wickedly fascinated with osmotin that's in plants, and it's been studied a ton, and that binds to adiponectin pathways in the body. For me, in longevity circles and the scientists, yeah, they know about it, but it's not on the market. And now, like, I think that is an incredible compound that comes from fruits and vegetables. And there's also some potential ways to turn on more production of osmotin within certain plants. And so I've talked to there's a phase 2 trial being done on high levels of osmotin, and it's reversing Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, ALS. Like it's freaking nuts, man.
I'm gonna have to
So
look that up. That's cool.
so yeah, I just did a little podcast on it. I didn't say the group that I've been working with, the Italian government, with a university, and then the top researcher that I got in contact with in 2019. Um, those kind of things are really exciting because it's the best form of genetically enhancing a plant that we should have been moving into in a healthy way. But then, of course, Monsanto took it down this whole other evil route that is causing all kinds of different problems. So that stuff, when you find these things that are just like within the body or within food, the thing of the homologous interaction between the plant world and mammals, between this osmotin and adiponectin pathway, that to me is like, oh my god, like it's just like such an obvious, we have a kinship here that is, and then CBD and even THC and the cannabinoid systems, and like it's just remarkable. I think just this coming together of this massive symbiotic kind of orchestra that we live in, and every once in a while seeing these interactions happening just blows my mind. Even though on the big picture I do believe it at my core, at my soul, that we're all connected and blah blah blah, but then kind of in the face of like science showing it, it's just kind of it's just it's amazing. It's mind blowing. And I think mind blowing in a sense that good. I want my mind blown because the
Yeah.
mind can't actually capture the magnitude and the miraculousness of this life anyway.
Yeah, of
Um,
course. I think if stuff comes together, there is some really cool stuff. And as long as people realize it's supplementation, that there's no one product that's ever going to
Yeah.
really, you know, connect the dots. It's just a combination of, as we talked about, eating well, health, hydration, staying away from processed foods, resistance training, and some supplementation, all those things
Right.
together, hopefully will increase our lifespan and our health span, as Peter Attia says.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, think
yeah,
about that too. What are your thoughts on, like, because I loved looking at, the Ozempics and the GLP-1 and all that stuff.
yeah,
And then it's like, well, wait a minute. I was like, if you eat whole food and exercise, it increases your GLP-1. Like, so it's like, again, we created this out here thing,
yeah.
and the very principles that you and I are talking about increase all of those levels naturally, endogenously in the body anyway. But now all of a sudden, and I think we're going to have I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, because I think we're going to have a train wreck with all these people abusing this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, listen, I'm not a GLP-1 expert, but I will say I'm totally against the person who's trying to lose 5 to 10 pounds. That's a
Yeah.
complete misuse of the medication. Totally awful, wrong way to go about it. Insulin resistance is real for a lot of people, and I think a lot of women with PCOS get stuck in the infertility pathway, and it has a lot to do with insulin resistance. And I think GLP-1 type medications have really helped a lot of those women, which also helps with weight loss because they struggle with that. I had a patient that was asking, he'd come to me for liposuction, and he was still kind of obese and had lost a bunch of weight, but was like kind of plateauing out and didn't know. And he was sort of like, Doc, should go get a gastric bypass? And I was like, no, dude. Like, I would much rather see someone try a GLP-1 if they've maximized their lifestyle, their exercise routine, and they're eating well. I would much rather someone try that than to go get a gastric bypass, which could be fraught with complications that could take a person out. So I think the abuse of GLP-1s and what we've seen happen in Hollywood has given a really poor taste in a lot of people's mouths. I think some of the things that are happening on the side that are going to be beneficial that haven't really been elucidated yet, that I think we're going to start to see. There's been some talk about the benefits with Parkinson's as well as Alzheimer's. There have been patients I know. There's a regenerative medicine doctor who I love to follow, Dr. Teen, on Instagram, and she and I commiserated a little bit during my burns. But she talked about alcoholism. She's a big GLP-1 person, and some people are using it, and they're quitting drinking. Like if they have alcohol abuse syndrome, they're quitting drinking. There may be a link to the GLP-1s helping patients with quitting drinking, and then obviously the benefits for cardiovascular disease. I think that there are things that we're going to see that hopefully microdosing might become a thing, but I'm with you. I'm not a medication pusher, and so I always like to make sure that people realize that you have to maximize lifestyle, meal plan, and all the other things that are in your control, and that maybe this is an adjunct if you really have a specific use for it, or there's good data to show that the medication can help. I just think it's being overused in the weight loss space right now, like beyond control. And the practitioners I hold responsible for that because I'm just about to make a post on a young woman who put a post up that she has osteoporosis and osteopenia, and she's like in her 30s. And the practitioner that prescribed her this medication should be fired because she
Yeah.
is literally. I looked up. She said I've been off it for 2 months, and I was on it for about a year. So I went back to her Instagram and pulled a picture from when she started it, and she was like a lean, fit, healthy woman already, and had no business being on that medication. And the fact that she was on it and now has osteopenia, which could be irreversible, or the osteoporosis portion, is really scary to me. A woman her age and as beautiful as she is, to see them on that medication, and that is 100% the healthcare practitioner's fault. So I think it's so easy to get online now and fill out a form and answer some questions, and okay, we'll send you a GLP-1. And is it being compounded? Is it safe or not safe? Like there's so many nuances to this that are really scary. But in the face of that, I also do think that there probably are going to be some good uses that we find for those medications for people. But I think we're in a very vulnerable moment right now where we need to stop the madness, right? Like we need to slow down that any and everyone can get this medication.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. I think the answer usually sits in the middle somewhere with some sort of big dose of common sense
No,
and
for
uh,
sure.
and some regulation where there's some, it feels so cartel-like when this stuff gets out there, and
Yeah.
then everyone is just flinging this around at anyone, and then it puts people in danger, and that's the scary thing. I think I've seen that woman before, and I think I've
It's
seen,
yeah,
yeah,
I just saw the video. It went viral. I saw it the other day and I was like, I kind
yeah,
of need to give my 2 cents on this, which is
yeah,
essentially what we just spoke about. And I just really I think that this kind of goes along with what I do for a living, and then I do a lot of cosmetic surgery and I still do some reconstructive stuff, but like this perception that all we do as plastic surgeons is what you see in Hollywood is just it's so delusional. Like most of the plastic surgeons I know, we don't see those patients. We don't do crazy stuff. We do the run of the mill stuff that we believe in. And so in the same breath with GLP-1s, like we shouldn't just be prescribing this to everyone. GLP-1s have been around for a really long time and they've been beneficial for a lot of people. And the fact that Hollywood has gotten a hold of this thing has really made it a very vulnerable, scary place where we're going to start seeing, I think, a lot of problems like this young woman with osteoporosis at such a young age. Like, if it's controlled and given to the right person and managed properly with resistance training and keeping nutrition intact, it could be a great medication for a morbidly obese person, right? With a
right.
stage 3 obesity or whatever new classification. But I do think that we have to get it under control. So I'm not totally against it, but I am not all for it for everybody.
Right. And just think about that eating disorder group of
Oh
people
yeah,
getting their hands on this stuff. Like
100%.
that's a dangerous road.
It
So,
is.
last couple things. What is your top few things, three, five, that you would say people should, I guess, change or avoid in their life?
Clearly, processed foods are a big one, right? Like that's a huge one for me. Fad diets. Stop with the fad diets. The fad crazy stuff is think something that I think people need to get away from. I think getting back to whole foods, nuts and seeds, Mediterranean diet type of living. I know you're a vegetarian, even vegetarian lifestyle. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think getting away from processed foods is a big one for me.
Mhm.
Um, What's something else I think? Another thing I think people overdo is cardio. Does that sound weird?
No,
I think people
no,
overdo the cardio. The getting on a treadmill for hours at a time is not what we need to be doing. We need not only obviously men, but our younger women moving into older age to be resistance training. Like the getting on a
100%.
treadmill and the mentality that I just have to run myself to death to try to look a certain way is just not healthy. And I think that I would really like to see people move towards resistance training. That doesn't mean you have to be a bodybuilder, but even rubber
Totally,
band resistance training of some type is really huge.
totally.
So I would like to see people get away from that cardio all day mentality. Those are a few things I think are good. And then when on the skincare front, just be careful. There's a lot of products people are going to sell you that are unnecessary. There are over-the-counter things, moisturizers and brands that aren't very expensive that you don't have to have expensive medical grade skincare. So I think I'd like to see people move away from buying any and every product that you hear on social media because I get the DMs, like I said, all the time, like, hey, what are your feelings on this product? What do you think about this one? I was thinking about taking this. I get it all the time, right? And I mean, the social media selling process clearly works, right? Because people are thinking of buying stuff. Look, I was getting frauded on TikTok. People were frauding my account. They were using my video to sell products. And I would literally have people DM me and say, hey, I bought that product, that little thing you put in your belly button that helps lose weight. Is that like legit? And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, that's not me. They're using my video and they're mocking the sell of their product with my video showing my approval for something that I don't approve of. So I would like to see people stop falling for the crap on
Yeah,
social media and really doing the research. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, you
totally.
know?
Yeah. Amazing, dude. What are some, last question, what are your keys to a super life?
So the keys to super life for me are working out is a non-negotiable. It is more about mental health for me than it is about my body looking a certain way. So that is a huge key to life for me. Number one is exercise, exercise of some sort, moving your body in some way. Um, Taking a deep breath and like relaxing a little bit in life is important. I think this go-go mentality that we have in America of never stopping and grinding yourself all day long is not healthy for anyone. Another thing that's become a big part of my life for staying healthy is seeing a mental health specialist. I don't really have depression or any what I would call mental health problems, but just bouncing mental things off of someone who's a third party, impartial person has really done wonders for me in my relationship and in life in general. So that's a big one for me. And I think that, we are all guilty of this, but I have started to put the phone down more than I ever have ever since my burn. And I don't scroll and consume content like I used to, as much as I love social media and I want to see the people that I want to see. I think putting our electronics down and reconnecting with human beings on this planet is so vitally important, and our children get it from us. I have this saying that I always say, more is caught than taught. Whatever you tell your kids, you can tell them till you're blue in the face to eat healthy and exercise. But when they see mom and dad get up every day and go do it, they're going to be more attached to what they see than what you tell them. And so I feel like we're setting a horrible example for our children and that we're allowing ourselves to be on social media every day and be on our phones all the time. And then here's the last one that I think is really important. So I hope people don't take this one the wrong way. I quit drinking about 5 years ago. My wife and I both did. I am not mad at people that want to drink alcohol. That's fine. If that's something you want to do, go for it. But alcohol is poison. It is literally poison to our bodies. And I think that we have become a society that has accepted overconsumption of alcohol as the norm. And it's a problem. And it's a huge problem because I think that it is wrecking people's sleep habits. And clearly it can wreck families if you're in the alcoholic zone. But I would like to see people really look in the mirror and ask themselves the question, does this serve me? What is it doing for me? And maybe it does help you relax now and again, and maybe you like to go to the occasional party, but I can tell you that for my wife and I, quitting drinking sort of was a natural step in our health and wellness journey. But I have never once regretted not drinking over the past 5 years. I feel better than I've ever felt before. And I think that decreasing the consumption of alcohol in this world is a vital, vital thing that we all need to start partaking in because our kids don't need to see it. They don't need to be involved in it. And I think we would all live healthier lives if we would step away from alcohol.
Amen. Amen to that. I agree 100%. I
Yeah.
lost my dad to alcohol,
I'm
and
sorry.
and I had an awakening in college where I was in my physiology classes and all of that, and I woke up, I was hungover, I couldn't exercise. I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, I can't now do my next day. I can't do what I want to do, and I asked something similar. I for some reason this kind of just dumped in my head. It was like, well, what are you getting from it? What are you doing? So why don't you just still go to the parties, still be with your friends, just eliminate the middleman of alcohol? And it actually turned into allowing the small town kids' inhibitions to come out naturally.
Yeah.
And I learned a huge part of myself that yes, I am a lot introverted, but I also, when I want, I have a great extroverted part of myself. And so I got to discover something about myself without poisoning. And yes, my family, not a good idea to
Genetically.
to play with it. So I agree. Why are we doing this? Why are we okay with the poison? There's no benefit to it, and in fact, the science
Zero.
is, yeah, zero.
It's literally a depressant. Like, I don't understand how people don't understand that alcohol is literally a depressant to every organ in your body and to every cell in your body. It is a
Yeah.
depressant. And I mean, people are like, I gotta have my one glass of wine at night to unwind. Hey, learn how to meditate. There are so many other
Right.
things you can do to unwind and clear your mind.
Yeah.
I know that numbing your body feels like the right thing to do, but like, hey, let's explore some other cool things that are out there, like meditation or something, you know?
Yeah, there's some great plants. There's kava kava. It's great
Yeah,
science. There's chamomile. Like do the ritual, just don't put the alcohol in it.
100%.
Well, awesome, man.
Yeah.
So great to connect. Let's do this again. And I love your approach on not only your own life, but your patient's life and the education that you're committed to raise the awareness and hopefully wake up the population to the things that we all can fall a little asleep towards, and that is
Mhm.
just life. So I'm a big fan of that work, and thank you for your time here, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great conversation.